Just because you have, maybe 10 more doors, you might have 30 more activities that go with those 10 doors simultaneously. So it's exponential with the number of things that you have to do with the door, while the growth is linear.
Today I'll speak with Kellie Tollifson out of Seattle, Washington area. Kellie is one of the owners of Tsquare Properties, and she recently sold her business to Rome Property Management. She has a wealth of experience. She's one of the pioneers in property management, I would say. She's been doing property management since 1996, currently manages over 700 properties, and honestly just has so much knowledge and has been a great member of the NARPM community. She's been a past president of NARPM. So without further ado, let's get straight into that because I want you guys to learn from her.
Thanks, Stephen. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. So we started out buying and selling our own rental properties. We were newly married. We had just moved up to the Northwest. Tom, my husband, who built the business, we built it together and have worked in it together and sold it together, and we're still married. And he was always interested in real estate, but had a corporate job. And so we found opportunities back in the, I guess, mid to late 90s to buy HUD foreclosures at a below market value pricing. Tom did a lot of research on it. And then as a stay-at-home mom raising the kids, I would go look at the properties, and then we would pursue the sale. And then our idea was to flip them. And then, economic conditions led to the fact that we had to keep some of them from time to time, and as rentals. And that's kind of how we cut our teeth on building this. And that's where my experience started. Probably about 5 years in, I discovered NARPM, which really catapulted my knowledge, my experience, all of the things, and led my career through the NARPM leadership area, and built the company from our few rentals to, like you said, over almost 700 now.
Wow.
Almost
Awesome.
700 doors.
Awesome.
So,
And I
yeah.
guess when you first got started, obviously 1996, a little bit different than today.
Yeah.
But how did you start to pick up like third-party owners? Like what was it that you did to get your name out there so that people actually started reaching out to you guys?
Yeah. We first of all, the very first time we started third party managing was a neighbor that just came over one afternoon and said, "Hey, I'm going to move over. I live in the Seattle area, and outside of Seattle, and he was going to move to Eastern Washington. He had 5 rentals. He knew that we had some rentals, and he said, 'Can you manage those?' And we said, 'Sure.' So we started there, and then another friend or neighbor came, and then his brother came and with a few doors, and so we kind of built that way. But as far as kind of more seriously moving into growing the business, back in the day, there was a company called APM, and APM was out of the North Cascades, and they had a lead business. They were the only lead business that we knew of in the property management industry. It was all property management, and so we signed up there. I think they eventually sold maybe to Buildium or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was it Buildium?
Yeah, it was Buildium.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was, and then so once we started getting some leads that way, I know Craigslist was we tried to use Craigslist a little bit, as far as that was new and exciting back in the early 2000s and late 90s. And so we would work with APM and then build from there. And then eventually, we started getting referrals after that.
Got it.
So yeah.
Were those referrals all from like existing clients, or did you go out and try to actually build relationships with referral partners like realtors, CPA firms, whatever it might be?
We had some realtor friends, but we didn't do it very actively. Again, I mentioned earlier that I was still running the household and Tom was still working a corporate job. So there was some intention, but certainly not the amount of resources that we were able to dedicate to growing the business once we came on full time, and my kids got older, and everything shifted from there.
I guess out of curiosity, how long did it take, let's say, for you to hit your first 100 properties under management, and let's say to really start seeing the business cash flow at an amount where you were like, okay, we can do this as a full-time business?
Yeah. So I probably started full-time, probably around maybe 2003, 2004. out of the our home office, and I don't know, we probably had about maybe 30 doors at the time, but for me that was full time, trying to meet with prospective people and manage all the tenants, move-ins, all the moving parts of having rentals and managing rentals. So probably 2003, 2004, and then we got our first office space in 2005. And so that was a full-time thing right there. So we were probably at that point, probably managing about 75 doors by then,
In
around that
2005.
50, yeah, 50 to 75 doors.
So from 1996 to 2003, you had about 30, and then you nearly or more than doubled
Almost
in a 2 year
double.
period.
Yeah, probably about that. Memory doesn't serve me so well when it's that far back, but
Sure.
I do remember moving into the office. And right after that, we hired our first employee. And Tom was still working his corporate job. So this was just my kind of gig, that he thought would be a great opportunity for us as a family to have a property management business.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess once you got to that point where you were
Mhm.
ready to, let's say, hire an employee, you now had roughly 70 doors under management. How did your problems start to change? Because you went from really like a one-man shop to now where you're starting to pick up some scale and have some staff.
Right. Thinking back and thinking about it, there's a lot more data out there now about when to hire your first employee. NARPM has a whole class on personnel and hiring and when to do it and how to structure it and so on. That wasn't around back then. So I was in a pretty much a panic mode that I cannot sustain this lifestyle of managing this business and managing the household. So it was, I don't want to say it was a knee-jerk reaction. It's just that it wasn't as well planned out as I would have done it today, or as people have the opportunity to do today. And the problems that I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up with the demand of needs for the existing clients, tenants, vendors, all the things that take place when you have that many doors. I just couldn't do it. I remember a time sitting in my car driving, and this was, probably 2007, 6, somewhere in there, and pretending like I was calling an assistant in my car because I couldn't handle all the phone calls from tenants and all the demands that were going with what was happening. So as far as the problems changed, I believe that was your question, is how the problems changed, is knowing how to scale. It was the biggest thing. So
In terms of like hiring staff to be able to scale up.
Yes, exactly. Knowing when to do it, managing the increase. These were the problems that I had. Like I said, managing the increased activity levels. Just because you have, maybe 10 more doors, you might have 30 more activities that go with those 10 doors simultaneously. So it's exponential with the number of things that you have to do with the door, while the growth is linear. The challenges or the services that go with it is exponential. So managing that was one of the biggest parts of trying to continue growing, and then knowing how to scale and when to do it.
Got it. What would you say like some of those pivotal points in your business were that required big decisions to be made that led to where you were able to get to eventually?
Well, one of the biggest ones early on was whether or not Tom was going to leave his corporate job. So did we make enough in the company? Did the company make enough money? And I don't mean revenue wise. I guess, yeah, revenue wise, was there enough money left over for us to be able to pay our mortgage and put food on the table? Well, for the first year, we did dip into our savings a bit because we did have the new employee. So we paid that employee a base with a commission because they were a leasing person. That was the thing I needed the most, was somebody to be out meeting with the tenants and leasing the properties. And so that was a big deal for us, could we do this with him, bringing him on full time? And then his job was going to be the new business development. So once we brought Tom on, the growth started to happen a little bit more rapidly and a little bit more steady. Around the 100 door mark is, whether it's single family or small multifamily, you're going to manage those a little differently. You're going to have a little less, a little different time demand and resource demand, depending on what your portfolio looks on those 100, like at that 100 door mark.
And I guess what led to the decision of taking on single family and community association? Did it
Oh,
just kind of happen
it's
organically? Like
just
how?
just like we started our business, it was kind of accidental. We didn't realize, that when we bought rentals or bought properties and they turned into rentals, that we would be where we are today, right? Accidentally, we became a third party managers. Same with the association management. We had a small 4-unit community, a 4-unit townhouse property call us back in 2006, 2007, and say, do you do community management? And I kind of looked at Tom and said, can we do that? And he said, yeah, we can do that. And then this was back again many years ago when it was less complicated. It's much more complicated in Washington state now than it used to be, and not as common. It's very common now for groups of homes and communities to have third-party management or have third-party managers or have an association, a nonprofit. And we were so lucky to have somebody in our office who she came in just to start temporarily because we had lost a bookkeeper, and Teresa came in and she was filling in and loved it. And now we have over 140 associations, and Teresa's the vice president. So it was very accidental, but it was a nice synergistic way to build the business for sure.
Do you have, would you recommend that to other property management company owners, like to add on other types of properties? Or do you think it's better to just focus on one? Like, what were your challenges with that?
So here's the thing that really was impactful. And granted, we hope this never happens again. I definitely think that any property management company that's doing single family long-term rentals should consider having another pillar of revenue. And mostly because when the pandemic hit for us, we had no idea what was going to happen with the tenants paying rents. We had no idea who was going to be keeping their jobs, who wasn't. It wasn't until 4 or 5 months in that we could see the trends that this isn't as bad as we had all expected.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of our company, other department, the HOA management, we were still collecting our management fees because the associations all had funds and reserves in, so we were able to pay ourselves our management fees regardless of who paid their dues, right? And most people paid their dues. So we had that ebb and flow. And same with economic conditions. You have the ebb and flow of short-term rentals, long-term rentals, or the association management versus the rental management. When one slows down, the other tends to keep the other afloat. And so, and it turned out to be a valuable asset for us when we were looking to sell as well. So I would strongly recommend, there's several different ways you can build a property management business and different avenues you can add on to that revenue.
Yeah. So it acted like a hedge basically. So whenever there was changes in the market, it might have affected single family or HOA, but at least you had the other side that was still able to bring revenues consistently.
Right. And it wasn't that they were balanced, back and forth each in any economic climate, but it was more that we knew that HOA was over here and they were consistent, and the rental side may not be as consistent because it's more volatile based on what's going on in the market. So, and a little bit of volatility, there's a revenue stream of what we call resale certificates or estoppels. When a property sells, we provide documentation or historical financial information to the buyer, and there's a fee for that. And when sale price or housing sales drop, that's a source of revenue that's impacted.
Got it. Understood. Great. That's good advice. I guess on a different note, so you're in Seattle, Washington, which is a fairly big metropolitan market. There's a lot of other property management companies out there. What have you guys been able to do in your market to differentiate yourselves from, the other several dozen property management companies that are vying for the same business?
Yeah. I thought about that question. I think one of the things that we do, or at Tsquare, it was doing what you you say you're going to do. A lot of times when we would get, calls from people that would say, I want to change property managers, it was communication. So keeping that consistent communication and transparent communication and timely is always the thing that we talk about at Tsquare. Is the response has to be by the close of the following business day, whether it's I got your email, I'm looking into it, and then make sure you follow up, or we've over the years, it's mostly just communicating and having your clients and your tenants and your vendors understand why you do what you do by communicating.
Yeah, no, that's big. I mean, we have the same type of policy at Upkeep Media where it's everyone has to be responded back to within 48 hours. regardless of whether or not you have the solution to what they're
Yeah.
asking. At least let them know that you're looking into it and trying
Yeah.
to get back to them with an answer. So
Yep.
that definitely, especially when it's a rental property, and on the tenant side, they might have
Yeah.
issues. On the owner side, they're concerned.
Yeah.
It's definitely a people business, right? So
It's that, and I say it's not property management, it's people management. And when you're talking about people's money and these assets, or even a tenant who, this is their home, regardless
yeah,
if they own it or not, this is their home. And that's how you want them to treat it. So yes, it's
yeah.
the service standards are really, we're offering a service, and that's what we need to do, is provide outstanding service. And I think we've been able to set ourselves apart that way. The other thing is just, we're affectionately referred to in the NARPM industry as a mom and pop, because Tom and I have been owned and operated the business, and we were in it every day. That was a huge impact to potential clients, where they wanted somebody who was local and who was in the business every day, not necessarily have to be the founder and the owner, but it didn't hurt, but just
By
to have that hands on.
by being active in NARPM, did you find that you were getting referrals from other NARPM members for clients, or was it more so just when you would have somebody reach out, you could kind of demonstrate your credibility by talking about the fact that you were very active in NARPM?
The second part, we from time to time we would get referrals from NARPM members, but they're all over the country, and the odds of somebody being in Tulsa, Oklahoma, wanting to have a rental or have a rental in Seattle is minimal, or wherever in the United States. So it was more about the fact that we were active members of NARPM, that we pursued the education opportunities available at NARPM, the participation in the industry to better ourselves, and therefore pass that value on to the clients.
Got it. Okay. And at what point did you start to think about selling the business? So now you've successfully sold your business. How did
Right.
that come to be? What was the sales process like? Can you fill us in a little bit on that?
Yeah, so probably, after spending so much time in any industry, and while there's changes in the growth of it, sometimes you feel like you just need to be moving to do something else, or moving on. My background is that, and life obviously doesn't last forever. My parents both died young, so around our mid 50s, we started looking at what is it we want to do. None of our kids were really interested, or they hadn't expressed an interest at that point. Before we actually signed on the dotted line, we did have a family meeting and say, okay, it's your last chance. And nobody raised their hands. So we, but we probably about 7 years ago or so, and what was happening is at the NARPM events, there were franchisees. PMI is one. I believe it's RPA is another. They were offering business entrepreneurs franchises, or if you had your own business, they would support you if you would buy into their franchise models, right? So that was kind of the beginning of it. And then we were approached by we reached out to several other national consolidators, if you will, or national property management companies that were looking to consolidate the industry. And so through the years, we talked to quite a few. And the pivotal point was a personal story that we had a very close friend, 59 years old, just honestly did not wake up one day. His wife he was actually watching our dogs while we were out of town. And his wife she woke up in the morning. He had gone to the guest room. For some reason, his back was bothering him, which had nothing to do with his death, but that mattress was better. She got downstairs to the kitchen, could tell he hadn't made coffee. He's usually up really early. She goes in and he is passed.
Okay.
We got a call while we were out of town and said, hey, Mike passed away. And we were just shocked. And this was in 2021. And we had the thought, we'd gone down the path of what we were looking for. And when Mike passed, we kind of looked at each other and said, okay, we need to get serious about this. Our kids don't want the business. Neither of us really wanted to do this into our golden years. And so that was the pivotal part of where we started to get serious about it. And then we talked to Associa and Rome, and here we are.
And I guess you eventually went with Rome. What
Right.
was it that made you choose that? Like, what were you looking for? What were your considerations when you were thinking about selling it?
Yeah. So Associa is the community association, the largest community management company in the world, I think, North America, the world. They've got over, I think, 210 branches, over 10,000 employees, and Rome is a division of Associates, their rental division. So that was one thing that really sold us on Rome and Associa is they've been in business for 43 years, and the same man that started the business still shows up to work every day, and he still owns and operates the business. So John Corona is the CEO and founder of Associa, and he is at work every day, and that made a difference to us. The values of Rome and Associa are the same, are in alignment with what we had built. The one of the key things that we looked at, and we talked to different potential buyers of Tsquare Properties about, is most of them wanted to buy just the assets of the company, meaning our contracts, right? And a lot of them weren't interested in the HOA business as much as Associa and Rome were. So when they came along, we said they told us it was an equity sale, meaning assets, liabilities, everything. We were able to carve out our company cars, so that was nice. I still have my car. But that was really appealing to us, to have the asset or the equity sale and have the whole thing. And it made a difference to us as to what whoever bought us was going to do with our business and with the people that worked there. And it's like we raised a child, and now they're ready to go into the real world, and what is going to happen to that child and that young adult when we leave. And so we wanted to make sure it was in good hands. We wanted to be able to continue through a transition period. I'm not ready to stop working, to stop to be retired. I love what I'm doing now with Rome, and on a national level, I'm being able to impact the industry still with the Rome businesses or Rome branches. And so those were the two big things, were the company values and the alignment there, or three things I should say: the company values alignment, the type of purchase it was, which was the equity, and then what were they going to do with the branch and the people? What were they planning? And they've left us alone. We told them we wanted to be left alone, and they've done that. They've gotten replacements for Tom and I, and so Tom's finally getting, I shouldn't say finally, will be getting out probably in the first quarter here.
Got it. So is like, from what I gather, you guys were still active in the business for the first little while after the sale went through, and slowly you guys sort of took a step back to where now Tom will almost be completely removed from the business.
Right. And so yes, at the transition period. So the first year we were fully integrated. We weren't looking at finding replacements for Tom and I at all. We waited until the second year. We wanted the stabilization to continue throughout the first year. And then the second year I started with Rome, kind of 50-50 at Tsquare and Rome. And then as the year went on, 75 to Rome and 25 to Tsquare. And now I'm full-time at Rome and just kind of wrapping up loose ends. But we have a new branch president and a new business development person. So those were Tom's two big jobs, is president and new business. So we were able to find those people, and they're being trained. And so it's been a really nice, subtle transition. And I think if you were to ask the employees at Tsquare, there hasn't been a huge impact on them, on their day-to-day, on what we do, since we've sold the company.
Okay, which is what you wanted. So that seems like it was a good fit.
Yes.
I guess you touched on business development. So that kind of leads me to another question I had for you. During your time running the property management company, what were your best sources of leads? Was it referrals? Was it like, how did you drum up business?
Well, I think, when you called us, we didn't realize how much opportunity we were missing out on. When I picked up that phone and you were there saying, "Hey, have you thought about your SEO?" And I said, "Yeah, Tom does our SEO." And
that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago. And you said, "Really? Because you're like on page 19. And I said, "So you're calling the low-hanging fruit first?" And you said, "Yeah, actually we are." And I think we're on page 1 now, thanks to you guys. So
yeah. Okay. So basically referrals and your organic.
Yeah. And Google AdWords. I think Tom tried the Bing thing. He tried the Yelp subscription. He tried, we dabbled in everything. We've never been really I don't know if the right word is aggressive marketing, but we haven't done drip campaigns. We haven't done postcards. Back in the day, there wasn't the electronic cost-effective way to do those things
Yeah.
where you can reach out to somebody on text or email if they show an interest and continue that relationship. We didn't do that. Tom has done a great job in, growing the business with his methods and ways of doing it. When we get a lead, he's got a really good closing ratio. So, yeah, it was mostly, and our growth was, we hit the market when we were ready to grow. The market it was 2009, 2010 when we were really poised for growth.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. It was perfect timing. Unfortunately, they were on what we call accidental landlords, but we were there and ready to take on the business and grow. And we did. Those were probably our best growth years, was maybe 2009 to 12.
Interesting. Would you say that you mentioned closing rate? What would you consider to be a good closing rate for a property management company, or rough range?
Well, I think 30% would be great. One of every three leads you close is pretty good. And, some months Tom would have better and some months lower.
For sure.
But I think 30% would be. What do you see in your business?
That's what I agree as well. So it varies. So that you have really companies where the owner is really doing everything, where sometimes they'll have a really high close rate, but they're taking a lot of time for each lead that comes through. Generally, you're able to do that with a smaller property management company when you're first starting out. But when you get to the type of size that you guys are at, 30% is a very good closing rate. Usually like the established companies that have established sales processes will close between 20 to 30% of leads that come through. Now a referral is always going to be the warmest source of lead, like a referral that comes from a trusted source. So usually those will have a higher close rate. But as an average, you're looking at around 30%. If you're doing that range, you're doing really well.
So and I think probably our two biggest lead sources right now is going to be the Google searches and referrals. Really, that's basically, we did the apps where people, go on an app and look for somebody, a property manager. Those don't seem to pan out as well, and they seem to be kind of costly. So
got it.
Yeah.
So if you were able to go back in time to when you started your property management company, what is the one thing you would change to help get to where you are now at a quicker pace?
So I think, again, back 1999, 2002, 3, we didn't have, even 2005, we didn't have the technology that we have today. But if I had to do it today, I would probably work on, I would invest in the search engine optimization and some sort of social media marketing, whether it be on your LinkedIn company page or a Twitter page or whatever they're calling it now, or even a Facebook page, because there's different generations on each of those platforms and there's different markets at each of those platforms. So I would definitely invest in that. I'd invest in the SEO. And then I think those review kind of gathering type softwares or companies that will help you foster good reviews, because putting it on your team can be really daunting. And if you have a third party, I think those three things are a great way to start. And had we had that opportunity back then, that's what I would have done, and seeing what I know now. And
reviews are huge. People don't realize the importance of those. And I think to your point also, sometimes having a third party allows you as the owner of the company to be able to go to your staff, and rather than saying like, you need to get reviews, you can now kind of pass on that blame and be like, listen, like, we're paying this company to help us with their reviews, and they keep telling us, we need to get more reviews, you need to be doing this, and you can give them kind of like someone else to get ticked off at, right? Rather than you constantly nagging them. So definitely I hear you on that.
And I think it's really impactful to a consumer. I can't remember we're redoing our kitchen, and I was looking at something, and on the website in the lower left-hand corner, this thing kept popping up saying, Jason M just gave a 5-star review. And then like a minute later, it was so annoying, but it had so much impact on me that, wow,
Definitely.
people really like this company. And I think when you have that affirmation as a consumer, you think, I want to make a good decision. I want to go with a good company, even though if it's subconscious, it's important to have that out there. If other people, and then the other thing too about the reviews is I don't think any property management company can avoid negative reviews, and how that response is given is going to be really impactful as well.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And that's definitely something that, we do, or Tom's always done, and it makes a difference. So those are the 3 things that I would do today. I wouldn't necessarily focus on, I know it can be effective, but I think it's less percentage and more costly is like the postcard drips campaigns, or, that kind of stuff. It's never been down my alley that way.
Any departing words of advice for, let's say, aspiring property management company owners that aim to be managing 500 plus doors one day? Any advice you could give them on what they should be doing to eventually hit that goal?
Well, I have lots of advice. I've been doing this for a long time, but I think the most important thing is build for scale. So if you have 10 doors today and you think, oh, it's no problem for me to go over and put on the hose bib covers or change the furnace filters or whatever, think about when you have 100 and 200 doors, what is the process you want in place? And do you want to charge for that? Because that is going to lead to the success where you won't have to continually change as you grow. If you think today that you're managing 500 when you're only managing 50, that growth to 500 will happen more naturally. The other thing I would say is don't hesitate to charge for your services. It's so common that property managers feel like they have to give away their services at a discount or for free. And so many times I wish we would have done things differently at the beginning and charged for stuff that we know that is valuable to the owners. And we've evolved a little bit there, but as you're starting out, don't hesitate to charge for it or say no. I can't do that. What I can do is charge you for this and make it happen. I can't do it for free.
Definitely. I think a lot of people have the mentality of, I'm just going to compete by offering my service at the lowest cost. Mm-hmm. But then later down the road, you're like, wait, I have all these properties and I'm barely making any profit on them. It's not worth it. So find something you can compete on other than cost. Make sure that your service stands out to the point you don't have to compete on cost. And when somebody reaches out and they're like, hey, this other company down the road is offering me 6%, you can say, yeah, that's because they have to lower their costs because they can't compete on service.
Right. Yeah. Or it's not just the management fee, right? There's other fees. What else are they charging? There's costs that are involved, and nobody should be doing this and not making a profit. So they have to be making a profit if they're going to succeed and continue. So the other thing is, I would say, look into global team members for your very first hire, the VEs. They didn't have those when we were around, and
virtual
life would have been
assistants.
so much different. Virtual assistants, or we call them global team members, but and they're so different than your local labor force.
Definitely.
In a good way.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kellie. If anyone wants to connect with you, is there somewhere they can go to reach out to you?
Yeah, I have a LinkedIn page if they want to catch me there, or my Rome email is kellie.tollifson@romepm.com. But yeah, so
or at an ARPM
I don't
conference.
Really say it. And at an ARPM conference, I'll be there. Yeah, definitely.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kellie, and we'll speak soon.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. Bye-bye.